Hi, this is Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to talk about anchor gear, but probably in a different way than you're used to seeing videos. We're not going to talk about road, we're not going to talk about the anchor so much. We're going to talk about some of the things that you want to set up in your system to make it so much easier to deal with. And easy is important because everything gets hard during a storm. So you want to make your anchor gear setup trivial. On Temptress, we use a Mantus anchor. We have a Mantus 85, which is a very large anchor, and oh my God, we love that anchor. But beyond being large, the Mantus is one of those modern anchors that kind of curl into the sand, unlike a plow, and they all do work a whole lot better. It's really worth an upgrade if you have an older style anchor. Some years ago, Mantus came to me and said, hey, I understand from a video you'd like to have one of the modern anchors. Maybe it should be ours. And I didn't just stop there and say, yes, thank you. I actually went to all the other anchor manufacturers and basically shared their letter. And they said, yeah, we'll offer you the same deal. Now it's apples and apples. And I looked, and I decided I like the Mantus better for a couple reasons. I like it better because of some little demo they do where they set it on its side and they measure the tip weight, and it is more, and tip weight is important to get it to bury in. But mostly, and this is kind of my own idea, I don't think it's their claim, but if you buy an anchor, it's going to be cast in a relatively small foundry. There are a lot of anchors in the world, but compared to like bits for sky rises and bridges, it's a really small operation. And casting is a fuddly process. You want to get it right. I know some of the anchor companies have actually had to recall because they had some bad castings that could cause cracks, or a whole run of them. Mantus anchors, as I can tell, aren't cast by Mantus. They're made as plate steel at the foundry that does the bridges and the skyscraper steel. And then they're cut and bent and bolted together. And I know some of you would be concerned with the bolt operation, but bolts are maintainable, replaceable. These are oversized bolts. I'm good with bolts. Hell, my engine on my car is put together with bolts. Bolts hold the world together. So I personally don't have a problem with that. And then on top of everything else, if I ever needed that big anchor to be stowed away somewhere, I can unbolt it. And it's so much easier to deal with a bunch of heavy parts than one big, gangly, massively heavy part. Anyway, that's the end of my little Mantus thing. We've been using it for years now, and it's the best anchor I've ever bought. Mantus sent us some other stuff. I actually contacted them because this is what's usually called a devil's claw. It hooks onto the chain, and we'll go more into this later, but it's so much better than a chain hook for strength. And I've been using one since I started sailing, except mine are galvanized steel, and they're really kind of hard to find these in 3/8 galvanized. I had to get mine galvanized myself, which is a big hassle to organize galvanizing, especially of small parts. So I wanted one of these, and I contacted Mantus, and they said, sure, Clark, we'll send you one of those. Tell people about it. And that's what I plan on doing because, you know, videos are what I do. They also sent me this, which is a really fancy, cool swivel. And we're going to hook this up and see how this goes. But I don't see anything wrong with it. It swivels very nicely, and it's got this nice shape that should go right through the roller just fine. If you do get a swivel for an anchor, it needs to be like a double articulating. The chain, of course, can move. The swivel can swivel, but also this second articulation kind of has to be there. Otherwise, if it didn't have that and the ability to swivel to find the center, when it comes over your roller, it would kind of like try to lift the anchor up with like a lever. Anyway, I've tried it both ways, and I had to buy another swivel before because the double articulation is important. In short, I believe they're doing this right. Well, let's dive in and make the change out. My current swivel is something, I believe it's called a Winchard. It's an old one. It was made in England, and actually made in England. It served me well. I've had it for like 32 years. I do see now it's got a little bend to it here. Hope that's not going to pose a problem. I've tied the anchor onto the yacht because I'm about to disconnect it. I don't want it falling in the water, of course. Well, let's take this off. The way they did this one is kind of interesting. There's, oh, good, that came off. There's a screw in the end that is just a locking screw. And then the main pin is what goes through the chain. There we go. So that's what takes the load of the chain, and this is kind of locks it in. When you put it together, you put it in with a lot of Loctite. Well, that's out. Now let's get this side out. Oh, okay, I'm gonna look like a fool on camera. Probably because of this bent piece, it's too tight, and I stripped the screw, so I'm gonna have to use I'm gonna have to work on that pretty hard, probably bending the metal back first. Tell you what, I don't want to ruin this device because this has been a great swivel. I'm just gonna push this out of the way, and then I'm gonna put the other swivel on so that we can see what it looks like. And set it up. Might mean it's another day before I actually officially change to the new swivel. Well, that's how it works. Take the shackle off. And then you take this roller off. It has this pin. This is like a really hardened stainless pin that actually ends up holding the chain. And then these two parts fall off. So what do we have here? Oh, gotta put that onto here first. This is 3/8 chain we're using. Pretty straightforward. And they suggest that you wrap it in this area with this Teflon tape. I imagine they're suggesting that maybe a little bit for the lubrication, but probably just to make life easier to hold those two pieces together so you don't get frustrated. Oh, it's a swivel. I can go the other way. Okay, I want to make sure I don't get any tape into the swivel area. That ought to do. And then we screw that on. Now it comes with this cotter pin, and we put the cotter pin through this hole. I want to turn that just a little more. Yeah, I'm going to take some of the tape out. It's not closing quite all the way. There we go. Drop the cotter pin in, bend it over. I do wish the cotter pin had, there we go. And then you put the shackle through. And then finally, there's a hole in the shackle bolt, and you would use that wire to mouse that, which means I'll show you on the other thing I'm going to work on. It's the same setup. So that's the swivel, nice swivel. I realized I didn't show the mousing bit, so let's just mouse this on there right now. So first step, you tighten the bolt down good and snug. So it doesn't want to leave of its own accord. There's really no force trying to make it twist, you know. Just tightening it down is pretty darn good, but you know, safety gear, so we want to be extra safe. So you get some of this stainless steel wire. The Devil's Claw didn't come with any, but this is from the other. You can get this all over the place. Might be Monel, might not be stainless, but it's a corrosion-proof wire. And you just run it through that. And run it around what won't turn. I'll do it a couple times. And then give the ends a twist. So it won't come loose, and then just cut the end off and tuck it in. It's like my tools are a little dull. Then finally, this is going to be sharp and dangerous, so twist this around in a way that it just will not get to where your hand ever gets. And there you go. That's moused on. Why would you want a swivel? It's a big argument that way. A swivel keeps your road from getting all twisted up when the yacht spins around it. But you know, if you're going to be in a mooring field kind of a situation for a long time, that's important. If you're going to anchor for a season in Georgetown, that's probably important. Especially if you're in a place where the current takes the boat around a circle every day. Yep. But when you really look at it, as long as you're anchored in more than like 10 feet of water, if you had like 10 twists to the chain, 10 twists over 10 feet wouldn't be too terribly bad on the chain. You don't want it to actually twist because that makes the loads unfair on the links and kind of weakens the chain. So there's a big argument saying, I don't want a swivel. That's a good argument because, well, stainless steel really shouldn't be used underwater unless it's really trustworthy stainless steel. And I've kind of got this feeling about Mantus that they're doing things right. So I'm going to go with that. This has been proven over 30 years to be good stainless steel. It's survived underwater. But I've seen other things break underwater with crevice corrosion, and the way stainless steel fails, it's like it's good, it's good, it's good, it looks great, breaks. So you're taking a risk there. You could use a galvanized swivel, and they don't tend to swivel as nicely as these smooth stainless ones, but they're galvanized, and the nice thing about that is they're pretty darn strong right up until they start to look like they're getting rusty. Then you replace them, and you do need to replace them or regalvanize them. And you guess you couldn't regalvanize a swivel because it would kind of weld it together. Okay, I am going to actually quickly go back to the old swivel for the rest of this study because I can't get it off without an angle grinder right now, and I don't want to destroy it. So I'll be right back to you, and then we're going to go on to the Devil's Claw and how to deploy the anchor and use it with a snubber. Woo! Damn it. Okay, I got the old swivel back on. I really have no problem with this whatsoever. I am going to switch to it. I like it better. And also 30 years on that and being bent, it's just time for a new one. But like I said, I'm a frugal guy. I hate to throw away a good piece of gear. And I think with maybe a hammer and a big pair of channel locks, I might be able to bend that back and get it to open up properly And I'm sure someone will get more service out of this swivel in the future because it is really nice. But that's the future right here. Let's talk about how you anchor. From the simplest point of view about actually anchoring. I mean, you go to the place you want to be, you throw all the heavy bits overboard, you give enough scope so that the anchor isn't being pulled upward, usually on chain, and I use all 3/8 chain here. You do it at a minimum of, let's say, 5 to 1, sometimes 4 to 1, especially if you have a big anchor. If you're going to do it with nylon, you want to have more rode out because the nylon will kind of make a straight line where the chain will always have something called catenary, a little angle. We have other videos on that. Now, in the case of Temptress, like I said, we have all chain. That chain doesn't stretch. And normally, because of that catenary, the fact that, you know, it's just something heavy, so it's hard to hold it in a straight line, you get some shock absorbing value because if the yacht is hit with a big wave, it can just use that energy to lift the chain up off the bottom and all is well. And then there's more wind. Now the chain's just got a little catenary in it and you get hit with a wave and the chain can come up and just come rod tight. It's only so high it can go. And then there's a tremendous jerk load, 35,000 pounds of Temptress. Might be going like a half a knot with that wave. And that chain, being steel, feels it has to stop it right away. And one of 3 things are going to happen if it's too much power to just do the job. It's either going to break something off the yacht where it connects. It's going to break the chain. I have seen it happen. I've had it happen. And what's most likely is it'll try to pull the anchor right up out of the bottom and you are sleeping soundly because you trust that anchor set you did when it wasn't blasting, and you don't want any of that happening. And that can happen on every wave. And you know how a hammer works, little tap, little tap, little tap, eventually something breaks loose. So we want to get some stress relief. We want to have some flexibility in this system. And we do that by adding some nylon. Nylon is stretchy, and this happens to be an old dock line I had. I just put this on, but it's got actually another little thing. I'm not really recommending this, but this will do nothing but help me. Again, this is something that lets the rope stretch, you know, lets there be rubber in the system. And I'll probably end up using this very spring line. I like it, and I like this on it. Anyway, the nylon itself is quite springy from the point of view of the forces that a yacht can put on. And of course, we all know rubber is springy by definition. So if we have a bit of this nylon in our road system, we can absorb the energy instead of jerking on things. And, you know, that's just nicer. Now let's talk about the devil's claw. The devil's claw hooks onto the chain like this. And if you look at how it goes across a link, you can see it puts all the force on the shoulder of one link, symmetrically back and forth. There's nothing about this that's causing the chain to be bent sideways and expected to take a load. If you had a hook, and I'll insert a video, but a regular chain hook that you see everywhere, that goes right across one link, and it turns that link sideways, and it puts shearing force on the side of the link, and generally it makes your chain a whole lot weaker right away, and it could bend the chain more easily because of that weakness, and then that link is always a little bit weaker. So, hooking the chain, it's either a devil's claw, or there's something you can do with rope, a rolling hitch. And that rolling hitch is a fine way to go, except it's a little more hassle because you have to tie it on and untie it every time. The devil's claw tends to stay on as long as you keep it under tension, but Mantus has added this strap, and for those few times in my sailing career where I get everything right and then I drop the devil's claw off the chain, I kind of like the strap. I think it's going to be a good deal. Okay, so let's deploy the anchor and So here we go. Did a video a while ago on windlass. It's all working now. Let's hope it keeps working. My trawl came down because of how high the anchor is. There we go. Okay, you let the anchor down, you get it set how you want it. In my case, I tend to lock the trawl off and relax. You don't have to do the rest right away. This is where you'd put your engine in reverse, back it down, feel all comfortable, maybe eat some lunch, you know, you just did a long sail. But before you go to bed or before a storm comes, you want to finish the job. And how we're going to finish the job is we're going to rig this on. Now, if you look at the bow of the Temptress, you see I have the main roller on the starboard side, but I have a secondary roller on the port side, and the secondary roller is there particularly for this gear. So I just come forward, that job will be a lot easier without a microphone cord. Okay, then just let it down. And this is where that strap comes in. Usually I have to keep tension on this the whole time, but with that, not so much. I usually, when I'm actively cruising, I rig the snubber and I never take it off the front of the boat. I just leave it up here on deck when I'm sailing, so it's the right length. Anyway, continue to let the chain down. Until you're taking the load on the snubber gear. I guess I also usually give it a wrap around here. Then you can lock off your chain for safety, but the chain will be slack. In fact, make sure it's slack enough that when the snubber stretches out, it doesn't pull the chain tight. And that's it. Now you can get a nice night's sleep, even when the storm comes up a bit, because you know you have this system of stretch. Recovery is trivial. Just bring up the anchor your normal way, windlass in my case. When the chain takes the load off the snubber gear and brings the chain hook, the devil's claw, up into the air where you can reach it, flip off that little strap, take it on board. In my case, I just leave it on the deck when we sail, but do whatever you do. And bring the anchor the rest of the way up, motor out of the bay, put up the sails, and have a nice sail. And I hope you have some nice sails ahead of you. Bye from Clark on Temptress.